you a question. When did you last genuinely celebrate a success with your team? Really celebrate. Not just a quick well done at the end of a team meeting, but a real deliberate, meaningful acknowledgement. I'm Lois Burton, executive coach and senior leadership team coach with 25 years experience across every sector. And today we're going to get into why leaders don't celebrate success enough and how you can put some practical tips in place to help you do that more. So first of all, let's think about why don't leaders celebrate success enough? Often it's about pace. In today's busy organisations, you're finishing one thing, you're finishing a project, and you're straight onto something else. And there's no natural pause for acknowledgement. Secondly, and this one is interesting, many of us still have a real deep-seated belief that actually celebrating success can be counterproductive. That actually good people know when they've done well, that the results speak for themselves, and too much acknowledgement of that can actually make teams relax too much and almost make people go soft. The third one, which is often quite surprising for people, that there are many leaders who are uncomfortable themselves receiving recognition, and therefore they're uncomfortable giving it. But the cost of not celebrating is higher than most people realise. So, what does the neuroscience tell us? Genuine recognition releases two things in our brain. First of all, it releases dopamine, which is the motivation to repeat the behaviour. And secondly, it releases serotonin, which gives that connection to both well-being and happiness. So together, that gives the neurological experience of mattering, of really being seen. And no recognition over time has a cost. Engagement drops, discretionary effort drops, and the psychological contract erodes. Many people don't leave their jobs because of pay. In some ways, it's the least important reason that people leave. They often leave because they stopped feeling seen, stopped feeling recognised. In a team, this builds positive emotional capital. It builds a shared reservoir of goodwill that makes teams more resilient. Teams that only come together around problems feel depleted. Those that also celebrate wins sustain energy. So let's think about how you can do this in a specific and practical way. Generic praise does almost nothing neurologically. Great work, team, barely registers. I had a boss, in many ways, years ago, one of the best bosses I ever had. And she often used to say, "Oh, that was brilliant," which was nice to hear. But when she kept saying it, I stopped hearing it because it was, well, why was it brilliant? It was better than it was rubbish. But when you name precisely what people do and why it matters, and you deliver it like you mean it, that's when you get the neurological recognition. Let's take an example. Let's call her Sarah. That you say, "Sarah, there was a specific moment in the presentation that you just did. You thought on your feet, you adapted in the moment, and that had a real impact on the client and how they're going to see us from now on." That is when somebody will really hear this. It also needs to be timely and as close to the achievement as possible. If you can notice something brilliant and say it right then, that's the best way. Sometimes there has to be a bit of a delay, but as close to the achievement as possible, that's when it will really land. And it needs to be personal. This is about how well you know your people. Some people really like an acknowledgement in a public meeting. Other people would prefer a private and heartfelt conversation. Ask if you're unsure. Ask your people how they like to be recognised. So, tip 2, celebrate the journey, not just the destination. Only celebrating outcomes, only celebrating the end result, means that what the team will start to think is that only the end result matters. The brilliant work along the way doesn't matter. And then people start to play it safe. Rather than risk a difficult thing that doesn't come off perfectly, then they'll just avoid it. And so if you celebrate the team that stayed together under pressure, the team that took a courageous risk, the team that learned along the way, that means that genuine learning gets applied. Doesn't have to be time consuming, doesn't have to be elaborate. A healthcare leadership team that I've been working with recently just introduced a what went well and why on their standing agenda. The why matters because it's not just what happened, but why did it go well? And that will mean more and give more learning. And within 4 months, they were learning more from their successes than their failures, and the energy transformed. There's been a great example of that recently. In the 2026 World Cup, England beat Mexico. Last 16 gets them into the quarterfinal. And Wayne Rooney, one of the pundits, was talking about, he criticised the England team for celebrating in their dressing room because he was saying, well, they haven't got to the end yet. So he was giving a great, perfect example of only wanting to celebrate the ultimate end result. If they win the World Cup, he wasn't allowing them to celebrate the journey of getting there. But actually allowing them to celebrate the journey will mean that they learn from that success and hopefully go further. I worked with a healthcare leadership team quite recently, and they introduced something really simple. Just at the beginning of every meeting, what went well and why did it go well? The why matters here, not just what went well, because when you talk about why it went well, then again, that lands at a deeper level and people really learn from it. And within 4 months, they were learning more from their successes and their failures. And the energy absolutely rose and the performance rose with it. The third tip is build a rhythm around this. Celebration requires initiation, and initiation doesn't happen unless somebody initiates it. And again, for all the reasons we talked about at the beginning of the episode, that doesn't always happen. So it's important that you structure it in. Doesn't need to be elaborate, doesn't need to be time consuming, but it does need to be consistent. In your weekly team meeting, 2 minutes, one thing that went well per person and why it went well. And if it's structured in as a standing item, then people will remember it, it becomes a habit, and therefore you're going to get that consistency. Quarterly wins review, 30 minutes mapping achievements before the next quarter. A leader that sends one personal recognition email every week to a team member. Culture's not built by dramatic gestures. It's small, repeated behaviours that are valued here. So, celebrating success is not a soft optional extra. It's a performance strategy. It sustains motivation, it builds psychological safety, and it keeps the team operating at their best. So remember, make your praise specific, timely, and personal. Celebrate the journey and not just the outcome, and build a rhythm and a structure around it. Your team's doing remarkable things. Make sure that they know that you know it. I'm Lois Burton. Please share this episode with a leader whose team deserve to hear it more. This is Leadership Trailblazers, and remember, the way we led yesterday will not lead us into tomorrow. Thank you.